Welcome back to ZE Coins. Today the story of the United States 1968 Mint Mark Washington Quarter Dollar is a fascinating journey through American coinage, the evolution of minting technology, and the surprising world of collectible value. When most people look at a quarter, they see just 25 cents, something to feed a parking meter or grab a quick snack from a vending machine. But coin collectors know that some quarters are much more than pocket change. Some are historical artifacts, some are the product of rare errors, and some are worth much more than their face value. The 1968 quarter belongs to that special group that captures attention, especially when it carries certain mint marks and reaches the upper levels of condition and rarity. To understand the true worth of the 1968 Washington Quarter Dollar, you have to begin with its place in history. The year 1968 marked a transitional period in modern coin production. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, the United States Mint made a monumental decision. Because the nation was facing a shortage of silver and production costs were rising, the Mint officially removed silver from the quarter and replaced it with a copper-nickel-clad composition. That meant that by 1968, the quarter circulating in people's pockets was no longer the 90% silver classic coin that Americans had been familiar with for decades. Instead, the new clad quarter had a copper core with an outer layer of nickel, giving it the familiar silver-colored shine but without the intrinsic precious metal content. This shift set the stage for collectors to pay extra close attention to the details of the new coins. They were entering a new era, and every minting variation, every small design change, and every mint mark became much more important. The 1968 quarter is especially notable because it was the first year that the United States Mint restored mint marks to the coin's design after removing them during the mid-1960s. Before that, from 1965 to 1967, no quarters carried any mint marks at all. So when 1968 arrived, collectors were thrilled to once again see those small letters appear on the obverse side of the coin, right next to Washington's hair ribbon. In 1968, Washington quarters were minted at 3 locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. But something very important distinguishes these mints. Philadelphia in 1968 did not use a mint mark, so any 1968 quarter with no letter comes from Philadelphia. Denver quarters show a D, and San Francisco quarters show an S. But here is where things get interesting. The San Francisco Mint in 1968 was not producing circulating coins. Instead, it minted proof coins exclusively. Proof coins are made using polished dies and specially prepared planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish, sharper details, and a higher level of craftsmanship. These proof quarters from 1968, bearing the S Mint mark, are especially cherished by collectors. For the average person, a circulated 1968 quarter might look extremely ordinary. You might even have one sitting in a jar at home. In most cases, worn examples are still worth face value or slightly above if someone collects circulated sets. But when it comes to higher-grade coins, especially uncirculated examples, the value changes dramatically. Collectors search for quarters that show no wear, have a strong strike, and retain their mint brilliance. These are the coins that can climb in value, sometimes reaching unexpected heights. One of the most desirable versions is the 1968 D, the Denver minted quarter. Tens of millions of them were produced, but only a small percentage survived in top-tier condition. Over time, most coins get scratched, dented, rubbed, or otherwise damaged simply by being used. So when a collector finds a 1968 D quarter that looks like it has never been touched, that alone can spark major interest. Brilliant uncirculated examples, especially those graded by professional grading services, can sell for substantial prices. Another highlight of the 1968 series is the 1968 S-proof quarter. These coins were never meant for circulation and were instead included in special proof sets. A typical proof quarter is worth more than a circulated one simply because of its higher production quality and its limited issue. Proof coins from San Francisco often display beautiful mirror-like surfaces, frosted details, and sharp relief. A cameo or deep cameo finish, where the frosted portrait contrasts sharply against the shiny fields, adds even more desirability. Some collectors consider proof coins miniature works of art, and for good reason. They capture every detail of Washington's profile, every eagle feather on the reverse, and the crisp lettering all around the coin. Proofs are often stored safely in cases, so they survive in excellent condition, allowing the best examples to reach higher values when sold to collectors who appreciate pristine craftsmanship. Beyond mint marks and finishes, there is yet another factor that can raise a coin's value: minting errors. In any year, some coins leave the mint with mistakes, and those mistakes sometimes turn them into valuable collector items. The 1968 Washington Quarter Series is known to have a few types of errors, including off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, and weak strikes. A double die error, where some details appear double due to a misalignment during die creation, can significantly increase a coin's worth. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing because the coin blank was misaligned in the press, also catch collectors' attention. While not every error coin commands a high price, rare errors in excellent condition can elevate a simple quarter into a remarkable piece of numismatic treasure. Collectors love coins that tell a story, and the 1968 quarter tells several. It symbolizes the shift from silver to clad coinage, reflects the return of mint marks after a short but memorable absence, and showcases the distinct roles of the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints during that era. Each mint contributed differently to the 1968 quarter family, making the series both historically rich and visually diverse. When talking about value, especially peak value, condition matters more than almost anything else. A coin in poor condition might be interesting historically but still worth only a small premium. A coin in superb gem condition, though, becomes a prize for collectors and can command extremely strong prices in auctions. For that reason, grading plays a crucial role. Coins are graded on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfectly flawless coin. A 1968 quarter graded at the top of the scale is a scarce find, and that rarity directly impacts its price. Because of the excitement surrounding older clad coins, the Washington Quarter Series continues to draw attention from new and seasoned collectors alike. Many begin their journey by saving unusual coins from pocket change and later expand into buying uncirculated or proof examples. The 1968 quarter often becomes one of the first coins that new collectors study closely, learning to recognize mint marks, examine surfaces for wear, and understand the differences between regular issues and proofs. The beauty of coin collecting is that it blends history, art, and treasure hunting all in one. Each coin has its own journey, its own mysteries, and its own unique characteristics. The 1968 quarter, with its post-silver heritage and its reintroduced mint marks, stands as a perfect example of how even a simple coin can capture the imagination. We're diving deep into a coin that many people have spent without a thought, tossed into change jars, dropped into vending machines, and let slip through their fingers without realizing what they had. Yet collectors today search for it relentlessly. It's the 1983 Denver minted Washington quarter, one of the most surprising and valuable modern circulating coins the United States has produced. You might be wondering, how can something as ordinary as a quarter minted in the early 1980s be worth more than face value? What makes this coin interesting? And why does it have a place in the hearts of so many numismatists? Well, the story behind the 1983 D quarter is more dramatic and unusual than you might expect. It begins with a moment in U.S. history when coin collectors faced an unexpected challenge that turned everyday pocket change into hidden treasure. In 1982 and 1983, the United States Mint made a major decision that would ripple through the coin collecting world for decades to come. To cut costs, the Mint stopped producing traditional uncirculated mint sets, those carefully packaged, protected collections that preserve coins in pristine condition directly from the minting press. These sets were the gold standard for finding flawless examples of circulating coins. Without them, the only way to find a perfect quarter from 1982 or 1983 was to hope it survived in someone's pocket without getting scratched, dinged, or worn down. Think about that. Every 1983 D Washington quarter you see today had to survive in the wild. It had to ride around in pockets, circulate through banks, jingle in cash registers, maybe even roll across a supermarket floor or fall between couch cushions. Most of them were used until they were dull, dented, and worn. And when a coin has been through all that, its value in the world of collecting drops dramatically. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because of the lack of mint sets, collectors years later realized that high-grade 1983 quarters, those preserved in near-perfect condition, were extremely scarce. Common in low grades? Absolutely. Everywhere in average condition? Definitely. But in the top grades, the kind collectors dream of, these quarters were practically ghosts. That scarcity is one of the biggest reasons the 1983 D quarter became so desirable. The Washington quarter design itself is iconic. The portrait of George Washington on the obverse was sculpted by John Flanagan, chosen for its clean lines and classic American style. The reverse features the bold spread-wing eagle perched proudly on a bundle of arrows, a symbol of strength and readiness. For decades, this design was a familiar friend in American pocket change. But even familiar designs can hide unexpected rarity. The 1983 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, known for its high production numbers and consistent output. And yes, many millions were made. But quantity doesn't guarantee survival in quality. Imagine millions of coins being minted, tossed into bags, dumped into bins, shipped across the country, dropped into cash drawers, and used in everyday life. Even the slightest contact with another metal surface leaves tiny scratches. Those tiny scratches, invisible to the naked eye, spell doom for anyone hoping to earn the highest grades from professional grading services. Collectors today often search through bags, rolls, and boxes of coins hoping to uncover a 1983 D quarter in exceptional condition. They're looking for crisp details, a sharp strike, fully defined feathers on the eagle's wings, clean surfaces, and shimmering luster. But most times, they find disappointment. A small scuff here, a worn cheek there, a nick on the rim, any of these tiny marks can take a coin from extraordinary to ordinary. Still, the thrill of the hunt keeps collectors going. And every so often, one of these rare high-grade examples surfaces, sometimes from old bank vaults, sometimes from forgotten hoards, sometimes even from people who simply never spent their pocket change. Another interesting detail about the 1983 D quarter is the composition. Like most modern quarters, it's made of a clad formula, copper sandwiched between two layers of a copper-nickel alloy. But the early 1980s were notorious for inconsistent strikes and weaker details on clad coinage. Some coins from this era show shallow impressions, weak edges, or dull surfaces. That makes finding a sharply struck 1983 D quarter even more special. Collectors also pay attention to die varieties and errors. While the 1983 D quarter isn't famous for major errors, there are still minor die cracks, chips, and subtle variations that some hobbyists enjoy searching for. Anything that sets a coin apart, from the thickness of a mint mark to the strength of a feather detail, can add intrigue. But let's zoom out for a moment. Why do we collect coins at all? What is it about a small metallic disc that captures our imagination? For many, it's the history, this idea that every coin has lived a little life, traveled through countless hands, and witnessed moments big and small. For others, it's the artistry, the craftsmanship, or the challenge of completing a set. And sometimes, it's simply the thrill of discovering value where no one else thought to look. The 1983 D Washington quarter embodies all of this. It's a coin that reminds us that rarity isn't always about low mintage numbers. It can also come from unusual circumstances, economic decisions, and the realities of circulation. It teaches us that even a common coin can become rare with time, especially when collectors realize its importance too late. Today, when collectors send these quarters to grading services, only a small fraction receive top-tier grades. And those that do can fetch impressive prices in the collector's market. Not every coin becomes a treasure, but the 1983 D Washington quarter proves that sometimes the everyday becomes extraordinary. As the camera zooms back in on the coin rotating under the studio light, the narrator's voice softens slightly. It's a reminder to look closely at the change in your pocket. You never know what stories you're carrying. The next time you come across a quarter from the early 1980s, especially one bearing that little D mint mark, take a moment to look at it more carefully. Check the edges, admire the luster, and see if it's one of the rare survivors of a year when mint sets were gone and perfect coins were almost impossible to find, and who knows? Maybe you'll find one of the elusive high-grade examples. Maybe you'll discover a treasure hiding in plain sight. Sometimes, all it takes is paying attention to what others overlook. The story of the 1983 D quarter is a story of survival, scarcity, and the unexpected value of the ordinary. It's a reminder that history lives not only in museums or old books but also in the loose change rattling around your pockets. And whether you're a seasoned numismatist or simply someone who loves a good mystery, this little coin has a way of capturing your curiosity. We're diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern coins circulating in pockets, drawers, jars, and collections across the country, the United States of America 2001 D 1788 mint mark quarter dollar. This isn't just any coin. It's a conversation starter, a collector's curiosity, and for some, a surprisingly valuable treasure. In this long-form documentary-style script, we're unpacking everything you should know: how this coin came to be, what makes it special, how to spot rare ones, what errors to look for, and ultimately, what a top example of this coin can be worth. A journey back to the early 2000s. The year 2001 was a memorable and transitional time in American culture. It marked shifts in technology, national identity, and the way people viewed everyday objects, like coins. The U.S. Mint was still in the middle of its wildly popular 50-state quarters program, a 10-year initiative that brought excitement, artistry, and meaning back to pocket change. Each coin honored one of the 50 states, and among those released, the New York State Quarter, featuring the year 1788 to mark New York's admission to the Union, quickly became a favorite among collectors and everyday Americans alike. In Denver, Colorado, the Mint struck millions of these quarters with the D mint mark, creating the 2001 D 1788 quarter dollar. While common in circulation, some of these coins would ultimately rise above the rest, earning admiration from collectors, and in rare cases, unexpectedly high monetary value. The story behind the 1788. That little 1788 inscription on the coin isn't random. It commemorates the year New York officially became the 11th state to join the United States. The design features the Statue of Liberty standing tall beside a map of the state, surrounded by a series of radiating lines representing its gateway to freedom legacy. It's a coin that blends patriotism, symbolism, and artistry in a compact, everyday object. Why this coin captured collectors' attention: not every state quarter is created equal. Some have higher mintages, some lower. Some have exceptional striking quality, while others roll off the presses with minor imperfections, or in rare cases, full-blown mint errors that make collectors' hearts race. What makes the 2001 D 1788 quarter interesting is not just its design or mintage numbers, but the combination of minting quirks, collector demand, and the popularity of state quarters as entry-level collectibles. These coins attract beginning collectors who remember the program fondly, seasoned hobbyists who pursue high-grade examples, and investors looking for undervalued modern treasures. Understanding the Denver D mint mark. Every coin tells part of its story through its mint mark. The D on this quarter shows that it was minted at the Denver facility, a place known for its large-scale, efficient production. Denver minted coins tend to be well-struck when fresh, though like all mass-produced pieces, occasional imperfections slip through. These imperfections are where the magic happens for collectors, the most exciting part, potential value. Let's talk about the part that really sparks curiosity, coin value. While the vast majority of 2001 D1788 quarters are worth face value in circulation, certain examples can be worth significantly more. What affects the price? Several things: condition. The difference between a circulated quarter and a pristine, untouched specimen is night and day. A mint state quarter with no scratches, bag marks, wear, or discoloration is far more desirable. Errors. Coins with off-center strikes, die cracks, missing elements, misaligned dies, or double-struck features can skyrocket in value. Collectors love anomalies, the strike quality. Even without errors, some coins simply turned out sharper, cleaner, or more detailed than others. Grading services look for these qualities when assigning a value. Collector trends. Anytime a coin becomes part of a news story, social media trend, or collector fad, its perceived value increases. Graded coins. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Professional grading can transform an everyday quarter into a prized collectible. Coins rated at the very top of the mint state scale, MS 67, MS 68, or higher, can command strong attention and strong prices. A pristine, high-grade 2001 D1788 quarter is like a flawless gem pulled from a mountain of ordinary stones. It stands out instantly to anyone who knows what they're looking for. Collectors often send promising coins to grading companies like PCGS or NGC to receive an official grade and sealed certification. Once professionally graded, these coins become trusted commodities. A top-grade New York quarter from Denver can draw impressive bids at auctions and online sales. Mint errors worth watching for. Even though most errors are rare, they're worth mentioning because they contribute to a coin's potential value. Some of the most notable errors in quarters from the state series include off-center strikes where part of the design is shifted, double dies where letters or shapes have a shadowed duplicate, cuts caused by die breaks that leave raised metal blobs, clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing, strike-through errors where foreign debris gets pressed into the surface. If you're lucky enough to find a 2001 D1788 quarter with a unique mint error, you might be holding something significantly more valuable than a standard coin. Why collectors love the 50 state quarters program. Part of what keeps interest alive in the 2001 D1788 quarter is the nostalgic and cultural value of the entire state quarter series. Millions of people remember collecting them with family members, teachers, kids, or friends. The coins became tiny time capsules for memories. Today, collectors look back fondly and seek out the highest quality versions to complete premium sets. The enduring appeal of this coin lies not just in its scarcity or value, but in its emotional connection to a generation who grew up checking their change for new releases. A coin that continues to be discovered even 2 decades later. People are still finding high-quality versions of this coin in bankrolls, coin jars, and pocket change. It's part of the thrill of the hobby. You never know when the next coin you find might be a treasure. And because the supply of pristine coins continues to shrink as collectors store them away, the value of top-condition surviving examples continues to grow. How to inspect your coin at home. If you have a 2001 D1788 quarter and want to evaluate it yourself, follow these steps. Check for wear, look at the Statue of Liberty's torch flame, the lines on the map, and the lettering. Sharp lines mean higher grade. Look for scratches. Even minor contact marks can lower the grade. Examine the mint mark. Ensure that D is clear and sharply struck. Inspect edges, chips, dents, or nicks matter. Search for errors, slight doubling, off-centers, or raised metal abnormalities are all worth noting. Compare to online graded examples. Identify how your coin's condition stacks up. Careful examination can save you from missing a hidden gem hiding in plain sight. Modern collecting and rising interest. Coin collecting isn't just an old-fashioned hobby. It's exploding online with millions of younger collectors joining the hunt. Videos, social media posts, auctions, and new grading technology have revitalized the field. And coins like the 2001 D1788 quarter are perfect gateways into the hobby because they're still accessible, familiar, and occasionally surprisingly valuable. Collectors often start with state quarters because the designs are recognizable, the coins are easy to find, and the challenge of building a complete set is both achievable and rewarding. The New York quarter, especially the Denver minted version, holds a special place in those sets. Why this coin's legacy endures. The 2001 D1788 quarter dollar is more than the sum of its materials. It represents a moment in American history, the artistry of the U.S. Mint, the nostalgia of early 2000s America, and the global fascination with numismatic treasures. Whether you're holding a common circulation example or a top-tier specimen, you're holding a piece of American storytelling in your hands. The final value mention. And now, as promised, the value highlight of this entire script. Exceptional specimens of this United States of America 2001 D1788 mint mark quarter dollar can reach as high as $38.275. We're diving deep into two coins that have sparked curiosity, excitement, and even treasure hunt fever among collectors: the United States of America 2005 P mint mark quarter dollar and the mysterious, historically significant 1859 dated quarter connected to early American coinage heritage. Before we begin, picture this: coins are more than currency. They're time capsules. They are storytellers made of copper and nickel, whispering tales of the eras they survived. When a collector looks at a quarter, they don't just see 25 cents. They see art, economics, geography, politics, and memory, all squeezed into an inch-wide piece of metal. And the coins we're exploring today? They contain more than their share of secrets. Let's start with the 2005 quarter from the Philadelphia Mint, proudly stamped with the P mint mark. At first glance, it feels like an ordinary coin you might pull from your change at a gas station. But for collectors, 2005 wasn't just another year, it was part of the legendary State Quarters program, one of the most successful coin series ever produced by the United States Mint. Each quarter released in that era represented a different state, a different design, and a different piece of American pride. But what makes the 2005 P quarters stand out is not just the program itself, it's the variations, errors, and striking details collectors hunt for. Many collectors remember the excitement of finding sharp strikes, clean designs, and certain die-related quirks that make a normal coin suddenly become a star of any collection. Suddenly, a quarter that should have been worth only 25 cents became something more, something special enough to display, talk about, and treasure. The Philadelphia minted versions of the 2005 quarters were circulated widely across the East Coast and Midwest. Millions were produced, but as collectors always say, it's not about how many were minted, it's about how many survived in pristine condition. Amid all the pocket wear, scratches, drops, rolls, and vending machine journeys, very few coins remain in near-flawless states. Those that do become little nuggets of rarity in a sea of everyday currency. Now let's shift to something older. Much, much older. Imagine holding a coin whose journey began in the year 1859. America was standing at the edge of a new era, an era marked by tension, expansion, conflict, and invention. Railroads were expanding. New states were joining the Union. The entire nation was transforming, and every coin struck during that period was part of that unfolding story. Quarter dollars from the late 1850s belonged to the seated Liberty design, one of the most iconic and beautiful designs in U.S. coinage history. They carried the elegant figure of Liberty seated with a shield, surrounded by stars representing the states of the Union. These coins were minted long before automobiles, electricity, or skyscrapers. Every time you look at one, you're holding something that predates modern America as we know it. So why is an 1859 dated quarter so fascinating today? Because very few have survived the past century and a half in collectible condition. Coins were used heavily in the 19th century. They traveled long distances. They were exchanged countless times in markets, railway stations, general stores, saloons, and barber shops. And because silver was involved, many were melted down over the decades whenever silver prices spiked. Each surviving coin is a miniature miracle, something that escaped destruction long enough to reach today's collectors. It's not just age that gives older coins value. It's rarity. It's the condition. It's the historical weight they carry. When you blend all those factors together, you get a market where an 1859 quarter can become a prized collectible, especially when it has a cleaner strike, a sharp date, or a more visible mint mark. Even an average surviving example draws admiration simply because it represents a slice of American heritage few people ever get to see up close. Now let's weave our story back to the modern collector's world. Today, both the 2005 mint mark quarter and the 1859 quarter have gained attention among collectors, not because they are impossible to find, but because they offer something different. A mix of modern nostalgia and early American history. Collectors love contrast. The shiny, detailed modern state quarter captures the spirit of 21st century America. The 1859 quarter, meanwhile, brings whispers from an era before electricity illuminated the nation, before planes filled the skies, before the Civil War reshaped the country. Holding these two coins side by side is like teleporting through time. Collectors today look for detail. They look for stories. They look for value. And while value can jump up or down based on condition, demand, and rarity, every collector knows one thing: the thrill of the hunt is priceless. Sometimes a collector might find a 2005 quarter with sharp luster and strong definition, something well preserved enough to stand out above the rest. Sometimes they stumble onto an older American coin, one that survived long enough to make someone's day at a coin show or an online auction. Whether the coin is modern or historic, one rule remains the same: every collectible coin has two values, the monetary value and the story value. And often, it's the story value that makes a collector's heart race. When holding an 1859 quarter, you can't help but wonder whose pocket it passed through. Was it spent by a pioneer heading west? A soldier on leave? A merchant buying goods for a shop? A family saving for hard times? With every nick, scratch, and mark, the coin silently tells its tale, and the 2005 quarter tells its own story too. For many, it represents family road trips, pocket change from the grocery store, or the excitement of collecting state quarters as a kid. Millions of Americans remember flipping through maps, filling little cardboard holders, and searching through their change for the next coin to add to their collection. A whole generation grew up doing that. And that makes the 2005 quarter more meaningful than just metal. It's a memory trigger. This deep dive into one of the more surprising modern coins people have been giving a second look: the 2015 mint mark quarter dollar. Whether you're here because you found one in your pocket, or you're a collector searching for overlooked gems, or you just love hearing about money hiding in plain sight, this video is going to take you through everything you need to know, from what makes these quarters interesting, to the special varieties that can boost their value, and finally, the exact price that collectors are paying for them today. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because the world of modern quarters is far more fascinating than you might think. Let's start with the basics. The year 2015 might not feel like history just yet, but in the world of coin collectors, even coins from the last decade can quickly become noteworthy when the right conditions come together. That year, the U.S. Mint continued its popular America the Beautiful Quarter program, an ambitious series celebrating national parks and landmarks across all 50 states and territories. The 2015 lineup included 5 designs: Homestead National Monument in Nebraska, Kisatchie National Forest in Louisiana, Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge in Delaware, and Saratoga National Historical Park in New York. If you have a 2015 quarter, chances are it features one of these scenes, and each has its own collector circles and small variations that make the search even more exciting. Now, the mint mark. That little letter on the front of the coin, barely bigger than a speck, can make a real difference in value. AP means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest branch of the U.S. Mint and often the busiest. Millions upon millions of quarters roll out of that facility every year, which is why, at first glance, you might think a 2015 quarter is nothing special, but that's where things get interesting, because even though these coins are modern, even though they're common, and even though they're barely a decade old, that doesn't mean all of them are equal. Not even close. In fact, hidden among these coins are special varieties, errors, and condition upgrades that can turn an everyday quarter into a piece collectors actually go out of their way to find. If you've ever wondered why a collector would pay more than face value for a coin that looks exactly like the ones we use at the laundromat, it comes down to three big factors: rarity, condition, and demand. And the 2015 P-Mint quarter has all three in some surprisingly strong ways. First, let's talk rarity. Yes, millions were minted, but rarity isn't always about total numbers. Sometimes it's about the number of specimens that survive in exceptional condition or with particular minting anomalies. A flawless coin, even if it's modern, is dramatically scarcer than one that's been tossed around in pockets or scraped along countertops for years. And because 2015 isn't that long ago, this is actually a peak time for collectors to hunt for high-quality examples before they degrade further in circulation, which brings us to condition. If you've heard terms like MS-65 or MS-67 before, those come from the Sheldon scale, a grading system used to evaluate a coin's state of preservation. The higher the number, up to 70, the closer the coin is to perfection. With modern coins, achieving those very top grades is much harder than you might think. Tiny marks from the minting process, bag scuffs, slight surface imperfections, those all bring a grade down. So when a 2015 P quarter shows up in a grade like MS-67 or above, collectors take notice. They know such pieces aren't common, and then we have demand. Some collectors specialize in the America the Beautiful series. Others complete date and mint mark sets. Some just enjoy the hunt for modern coins with unusual details. All of this demand creates a market for quarters like the 2015 P issue, especially when they're in beautiful condition or have standout features. But perhaps the most fun part of coin collecting, what really excites people, are the errors and varieties. These are the quirks, the minting mishaps, the tiny differences that slipped through the cracks and made their way into circulation. And yes, 2015 quarters have some great ones. For example, certain 2015 P quarters show signs of die cracks, tiny raised lines where the die used to strike the coin became worn or damaged. Others show double die effects, where parts of the design look slightly duplicated. And then there are specialty oddities, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and even color errors, which can produce unusual edges. Each of these varieties can change the value of a coin dramatically, depending on severity and uniqueness. Even casual collectors love these because it feels like stumbling across a rare misprint baseball card, except in this case, you might find one in your spare change. So now you might be wondering, how do I tell if my 2015 P quarter is worth anything? The good news is, you don't need expensive tools or years of experience to start. Begin by examining the overall condition. Look for brightness, clean surfaces, sharp details, and minimal scratches. Coins that have been lightly handled or never circulated at all are your best candidates. Next, look closely at the artwork, especially around lettering, edges, and fine design features. That's where double dies and minor variations usually show themselves. Using a simple magnifying glass or a cheap jeweler's loupe can reveal details you'd otherwise miss, and of course, check the mint mark. The P on the 2015 issue is typically crisp and clear, but on error coins, it could show slight distortions, doubling, or shifts. While not all of these automatically make the coin valuable, they're worth noting. Another tip: if you found your coin in an original US Mint quarter roll from 2015, the chances of it being in good condition are higher. Collectors often buy rolls, bags, and mint sets when they first release, which helps protect certain pieces before they get scratched up in circulation. But here's the real point: even though most 2015 P quarters are still worth face value, just 25 cents, certain ones, especially beautifully preserved examples, truly are worth more. And if you've never checked yours, you might be overlooking something sitting right in your coin jar right now. That brings us to the value part of this video, the moment everyone waits for. After all this build-up, what is a noteworthy 2015 P Mint Mark quarter dollar actually selling for? Collectors today are willing to pay premium prices for examples that have exceptional qualities, fall into desirable grades, or show off specific varieties. These aren't random guesses. They come from actual buyer behavior, numismatic interest, and market trends observed by collectors and dealers. So here's the number you've been waiting for, the highlighted value for the kind of high-quality 2015 P quarter that collectors consider desirable.